saw it on Linden Street. Hello, and welcome to I Saw It on Linden Street, the show dedicated to the joy of finding an appreciation in cult films, exploitation oddities, beloved classics, and all points in between. I'm your host, Chris Roberts, inviting you to join us here at the Linden Street Cinema Experience Theater as we once again dig up a fun cinematic relic from the past. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us. Now, normally this isn't your standard film review, rather we would do a synopsis of a film that deserves to have another inspection. We'll throw in a little background on actors, directors, and perhaps you'll even get a half-amusing story out of me. Fair be warned, while we don't cover all aspects of plot, we do discuss endings and spoilers, so if you'd like to be surprised, please give the film a viewing before you listen to us. If you like us, I hope you do, please recommend this podcast to a friend, give us a favorable review. Now, this is a bonus episode recorded in late June of 2020. This is a conversation between myself and a good friend of mine, a one Dr. Chance. See, I've known Dr. Chance now for a good period of about 2.5 years. We met through mutual friends playing pub trivia together, and once we discovered we were both into really weird movies, we actually just hit it off. Once Chance figured out that I was going to be covering Zardoz, he made it a point to say I needed to sit down and have a conversation with him about the film. And so, what we are doing is something we would like to call a second chance look, this time at Zardoz. So, as a bonus episode for your enjoyment, I would like to submit to you a conversation between myself and Dr. Chance discussing the film Zardoz. So, hope you enjoy. Please take care of yourself out there, and here we go. Well, I am happy to say I am joined here today by a fellow lover of cult films, bad B movies, Z-grade schlock, a man who I am desperately trying to actually turn into a cinephile here. The one, the only, the marvelous Dr. Chance. So how are you doing today, sir?
I'm all right. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing okay in these times of COVID. It's oh so fun. You have had a lot going on. You just graduated, I believe, from a university of some renown.
Yep, just graduated, just got my PhD.
From what I understand, it's a degree studying worms.
It is. I am a worm fanatic.
So to catch folks up, Chance, you've spent the last several years of your life crossbreeding nematodes in a sketchy lab in the bowels of a very well-regarded institute working on your goals to be a supervillain simply known as the Conqueror. Is that basically?
Yeah, I'm not going to make any comments on that. I'm not going to say one way or another. I'll let that one hang.
You do plan on taking over most of the North American continent by 2042, though. That was, if I read the manifesto right.
So this isn't a visual medium. Right? So
It's not a visual medium.
No, that is not my plan.
Listeners cannot see the wild-eyed winking and series of semaphore blinks I'm receiving from Dr. Chance. Well, thank you for being on today, sir.
Sure.
My gentle ribbing aside. No, it's good to talk to somebody about film. So when we were talking before I was actually doing this, we had originally sort of bonded over the fact that you are obsessed with the film Zardoz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're a mega fan, but you are obsessed with it.
That's fair. I saw it, I don't know, I was like still an undergrad, I think, and it was one of those, you gotta check this out. And someone who was pretty into terrible movies showed it to me. And by the end of it, it was one of those experiences where you walk away and it becomes kind of its own thing in your head. It's its own category for sure in my brain. I don't really know what that category is, but I don't know. It's a good movie if you can't stop thinking about it, even if what you're thinking about is like, what the hell did I just watch?
I like it. I mean, well, here, let's visit something you said. I fully am a fan of what I would say are bad movies, and bad movies still does not mean it doesn't have any merit or can't be enjoyed. It just has to be framed in that context. So all that being said, though, do you think Zardoz is actually a bad movie, or do you think it's sort of like, does it enter that B grade realm? Which again, that's no insult.
Yeah, I don't know, because it had production value, right? Like it tried real hard, and that's what I really like about bad movies. I guess I said bad movies, so maybe it falls under that category. But like, there were scenes where they were shot, and you could tell they were trying. Some of them definitely come off cheesy. I think it had a decent budget. I don't know where that went, but like you
I
could
believe
tell.
cocaine.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I like is like be in the sense of like rubber costumes and zippers are evident. No, but in the sense of like just unedited, uncontained creativity in the script, I'll say, yeah, it like I don't really know what it's about, and it's part of the reason I loved it so much. Is I walked away, you know, invested in all of these weird colors and falling into mirrors that was really just Sean Connery walking behind a mirror.
But he's in the computer now.
Yeah. And I had no idea why any of it happened, but I was still thinking about a lot of the themes. I think there were themes.
I think definitely themes. I just find it interesting when people are like, this movie's bad. It's like, I think it started out with the gem of some really good ideas. Like, Boorman had wanted to do something, creative and out there. And I mean,
Well, wasn't it marketed as like a 2001 killer, like the next one, the one that will
kind of replace, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I believe the advertisement early on was that you are going to take a fantastic trip of the mind. But
yeah.
I mean, as they were releasing the film, Boorman had to basically recut it and put in a bunch of stuff because the test audiences were not getting it at all. That's where they got the floating head introduction, where you have like, basically, we're going to set this all up for you, because the initial us not doing that just angered a ton of people. So you have a weird floating head prologue.
That's I wondered if that was the situation, because I should probably clarify, like, I don't go behind the scenes very much in movies. I enjoy them for what they are, and what I love about them is this was clearly a dude with a vision and a lot of illicit substances at his disposal, where you could see like shifts in the plot where a new rail was snorted.
And it decided to take another turn.
Yeah. But like at the same time, I watched this with my fiance, and she, in the first 35 seconds, said, okay, stop it. So we paused it, and she's like, I need a pen and some paper, because she couldn't follow the floating head introduction. She's like diligently taking notes, and by the end of it, she was still like, I don't know what this was about.
It can be a rough go. Yeah, for certain, it can be something that totally throws people off. Yeah. I mean, you have the year is 2293. We're opening on a disembodied head of a man who claims to be Zardoz, and then explains that he's not Zardoz, and that he's lived for 300 years and wants to die, and he can't because he's immortal. You got the whole setup, and
classic scroll. Like, it could have just been like Star Wars, or just scroll that across the screen.
Or just, an opera singer comes off in the corner and just starts a whole, vibrato going at once. It's like, am I watching Pagliacci? What is this? Like, you're just getting this tragic tale of future dystopia. I can tell you that I believe Zardoz, a fifth of its budget went just to retain Sean Connery. And Sean Connery was, like, I think half a step away from working for Bowls of Soup, because he had decided, like, I'm not doing James Bond anymore. I'm going to go off and make, like, quote, real movies. And in doing so, he didn't have a ton of offers because people wanted him to be James Bond or do something along those lines. So he can't just slide into these works of, art that he thinks are going to be amazing. Instead, he's getting like, all right, I'm going to shoot this stage play, and then I'm going to turn it into a full-on film. And guess what? Barely anyone saw the stage play, so now no one's coming to see the film. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. He lucked out and caught Sean Connery at a time where he was kind of desperate.
Yeah.
Your last 2 movies didn't pick up and they bought you out of your last contract. Sure, we'll make a film. And this kind of gave him that second life for that back end of the 70s.
This did. Zardoz did.
It did. And Zardoz, again, was not like a massive hit by any stretch. It's just this basically was like, okay, Connery can be not James Bond and it's still okay.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't mean the product was perhaps the factory fresh, piping hot thing we were promised, but, basically this movie was made for about $2 million.
I feel like that's quite a bit in the 70s.
I would think for 74, it would get you a decent amount. But, I mean...
At least maybe more than a weird glass pyramid that you shuffle behind,
Glass pyramid, the saran wrap walls was an interesting take.
Yeah, that raised a bunch of questions, actually. For example, why were they amazed that he could punch through saran wrap? As a plot point.
Well, he is a brutal.
Ah, there we go.
He is a savage.
Which raises another question.
Yes.
What is a brutal and what is the Vortex?
Well, I mean, they do sort of explain in their own haphazard way, like anyone who didn't evolve and become the, elders, they were brutal. They live in their own brutal isolation, basically, and everywhere else on the face of the earth. I'm guessing this was logically like a British film. They're in some part of the UK.
But there's the brutals, and then there's the brutals, and then there are also the brutals, and there seems to be like a hierarchy even out there that they just gloss over.
Yes, no, they do. The hunters are the brutals that are used by the immortal folk to control the unwashed masses, and then put them to work later instead of just killing them, putting them to work to actually,
So these were things that, like, I had seen this maybe once before, and I rewatched it for this, and I was getting asked quite a few questions as we were going by my fiance, and those were the questions like, "What's a brutal?" And I couldn't actually define it. Like, I had a sense, but like when I was like actually pressed to give it, it was like, it's like the outside the vortex. Oh, it's the vortex. It's like, what? Just watch the movie.
See, if you played Gears of War 3, you could explain that it's this like secretive energy wall that veils the hidden, fun fortress of solitude that the Eternals are living in, except it's more like a ranch of solitude.
Yeah. So it's just that's what I loved, and why I kind of got obsessed with this movie, is it nails everything it's trying to do, which is so much just enough to be super frustrating to watch, which is fascinating.
And you were drawn to Connery with a Zapata mustache, a red diaper, 7-league boots, and a gun belt.
Yeah, well, that's the eye-catching part, right? Yeah. The red eye candy that draws your eye to the poster.
It just goes without saying. So, at least I'll say this: my wife, when she first saw this, was blown away. She thought this movie was great, which, taking that with a grain of salt, that I did not say my wife has taste, but I'm the one reviewing this film too and talking about how, well, I like it, and here's why. So I'm at least in good company. But she constantly wanted, like, wait, pause it, go back, hold on, I need to hear that again, which I think is also, this movie is not hard per se to follow the logic of. It's more like it just has so much going on in the foreground that you don't really get into all of like the rules and why it works. And by the time you figure it out at the end, you've almost sort of blown the fun of it, because it took so long to get there if you aren't walking into it.
I will say, like, on second, third, fourth viewings, like, it does get to be a little, now that you know sort of the logic,
Yep.
the story is actually more enjoyable if you're watching it for a second or third time.
Yeah. That was something that this was my second time watching it, and it was like, I knew where it was going, roughly. I remembered it, and I'd heard the podcast before, so you reminded me of some things. And like, I was watching it, and it's like, oh, actually, this is kind of a straightforward story, but they throw in so many other little nuggets briefly that, you know, stuff that was just kind of part of the feeling of the 70s at the time, where, you know, I feel like there was some feminist movement just kind of sprinkled in there at one point, and then very quickly dropped and moved on,
Yes.
and kind of picked back up again, and then, you know, easily forgotten during the very strange, aggressive sex dream memories that for some reason were thrown in there. And then all kinds of other weird tidbits. For example, like, I'm a fake god, are you sure your god's real? Followed by an evil chuckle, just right out the gate, like, setting the tone. So, I mean, that's like, any one of those ideas, like, expanded upon in this universe, probably could have been a movie that could have been, like, artsy and what Sean Connery wanted. But instead, we get Zardoz.
See, I have to always, so we're going to jump around here, so I apologize. Let's jump to the logic. Do you have any problem with the ending? So the concept is Zed ends up freeing everyone who at least was in the eternal collective haven, and he frees them from the horrors of having to live forever by bringing Sweet Lady Death and letting the Brutals in, and they basically celebrate by killing everybody. Except for the people that get out early. So, are you satisfied with the ending of kind of just, like, spanning time and seeing that, like, people start aging, living, dying again? Like, does it feel good to you?
I mean, so my understanding is, breaking the computer, they were no longer being, like, uploaded, so their living forever was just kind of shut off. Is that an accurate reading?
Yes, that's an accurate.
Okay, cool. So, like, when I watch that, it kind of goes back to, I'm not entirely sure which of the threads this movie is supposed to be about all the way through. Because by the end of it, it's like, okay, cool, I get it. He returned death to these people who were living in, like, this gray fugue state of boredom and eternity. But, like, by that point, there were 5 other plot lines that I was trying to pick up on, and it's like,
keep straight.
I think this is inconsistent, but I can't actually put my finger on it. Where, like, you know, the gun is good, penis bad, right out the gate.
Yeah.
I guess is a thesis. Yet it turns into the opposite, except the gun is still good and the other is good. I would say,
Sort of
is
like
how that thesis
stewardship.
yeah, is how this ended up. It's like, no, both were good. You should be banging and banging.
And dying.
Yes.
Since one is supposed to beget the other either way. No, I like it.
But yeah, as far as, like, satisfying, it's like, I think that's what kept me thinking about this movie, is it was just frustratingly not satisfying at any point.
Oh no, totally. I mean, yeah, you're taking a film, and you have, I'll call it the exciting climax, where he doesn't really fight anybody, he doesn't really do anything. He learns stuff. He has sex with a bunch of ladies to make sure that they're going to leave pregnant, so that when they go out into the world and become, you know, able to live and die again, they will carry on the species and then themselves die. So he sets this all up, and then he just quietly drifts off with Consuela to live in the head, away from everyone.
They were living in the head?
They were living in the head.
Did not realize that.
So, yeah.
Not that it really changes.
No, it doesn't. So they live in a big stone head, which becomes their big stone house that's shaped like a head. And, you know, his gun's been tacked up on the wall and it just rusts away. Time goes by. They have a kid. He leaves to go out and start his own life. And then bones. And then blackness. We're done.
Yep.
Credits start rolling, sort of. Can you imagine being an audience member in 1974? Like, and you're not stoned. You're just you went and you paid the 70s equivalent of a movie ticket. So what? I'm guessing $1.25 maybe. You which is still hard-earned cash for the day, adjusted. Yeah. So you shell that out. You even took a date. 1974 Chance takes a date. So he's got to pay for 2 tickets. She's going to want popcorn, probably a drink. So, you've laid this all out and you've had to sit there for the...
Right. I just got off a long shift at the giant lapel factory. And...
Right. Yeah. You're looking good. You're feeling fine. You got some boogie in your heels. You're ready to go. How would you react to that end credit sequence?
Honestly, probably would have walked out if I paid for it before the end credit sequence.
Yeah, I figured most people had that same reaction, which is why there's been so much. I think half of the people that came back to this movie 10 or 15 years later were people like you who were like, this is interesting. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Maybe I got to watch it again sometime later. But They also then didn't go out of their way to,
And it takes a lot out of you to actually, at least for me, to actually watch it and stay engaged with all these schizophrenic leads into new plot points and new, this entirely new concept is just dropped in, and you could hear them as they were inhaling all the cocaine when the plot shifted. You could hear it in the script. You could just hear and then
a new burst of energy,
new plot. Movie resets.
Yeah, but we never get that satisfaction. I just find it funny, especially when you think about the making of it. He's got to contend with really stupid things that no one should, other than the cocaine budget and making sure that Connery gets paid. And Connery went Dutch with him. He basically lived in Borman's summer home. So
didn't it was just plagued with defaults on loans or something, right? The filming.
The filming, they were having some issues with the filming, but a lot of the problem was they couldn't get basic stuff that they needed, which it's okay, we have this perfect setting. We are going to film, all right, here in Ireland. It's beautiful. And then they never factored in the Irish government with all of the IRA, quote, the troubles that were going on in Ireland. They didn't factor in that it doesn't matter that the guns you want to import to make a movie are fake. They're still guns. So the concept that Borman was offered weaponry for a film by actual IRA members who are just you can borrow our weapons. We have plenty of extra here, which is...
So the guns spilling out of Zardoz's mouth were IRA guns.
No. Here's where I will make a distinction. Borman was smart enough to know that you do not want to owe favors or get involved with anything with the IRA, even if it starts out as friendly measures. So Borman basically sucked it up and was able to, I think he imported guns from England instead, which would explain actually why a lot of the guns you see are all British weapons, although the movie is supposed to take place in the UK. So to me, that's sort of a non-starter, but somebody was making a point I read online, and it was if you look, he's using one of those breaking Webley heavy pistols that were World War I guns. You're going to notice there's a lot of Tommy guns and a lot of period piece weaponry that all looks to be about, WW1, WW2 era possibly. So there's not a lot of guys with heavy machine guns and Stens. They're walking around with wooden rifles and revolvers.
Man, to see someone just riding through a beach with a Gatling gun would have been something to see.
Yeah, I think they did it. It was called Jonah Hex, and no one went to see it.
I was gonna say, just seeing a horse really front heavy as they're trying to shoot a fake Gatling gun.
Struggling against the weight. Oh yeah, but no, I enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, this film was kind of all over the place. So Connery, I think, does a serviceable job because at this point it was a paycheck and he was committed and he was going to do it. He's living with the director.
Oh yeah.
He's got to, right? Making the most out of what it is. Charlotte Rampling, I'm actually a little confused because she's too good of not that Connery's not too good of an actor, but like you got him because he was between jobs. Charlotte Rampling totally is confusing with me because she's an excellent actress, beautiful lady, and then it's like we want you to be this very close-minded, hypocritical, man-hating shrew of a future society. And by the way, you're then going to get seduced by the guy you're making fun of, who's a
that was a 180 in a second. Like
totally, completely. So it's kind of like and again, it's not the role; it's the fact that like I'm not insulted by anything a character does. I'm more insulted that you made an actor do this, and it's like. And by the way, she could have totally changed her mind. She could have gone off with Zed at the end of the film. I have no problem believing that they do end up falling in some sort of love-lust scenario since he's still like a walking caveman. What bothers me is the fact that like someone came along and was like, today, you love him. Like, we're not going to explain anything about any part of this relationship or what changes. It's, we hit this button, we beam that message into her mind, and now she thinks you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Pretty much.
Yeah, it was... Some of the stuff was problematic. Like, for example, they kind of hinted that Zed was a prophecy at one point, I thought.
They did, but then they don't do anything with it.
Yeah, and they just kind of dropped that. And I think the prophecy just turns into smelling his body odor makes people no longer catatonic. I'm pretty sure that was a plot point.
Yeah. You know, he just has that muskiness of life. And
leftover handlebar mustache. It's like a reservoir of good old 70s musk.
It's just, yeah, I will say this, it's a very sweaty film.
Yes.
Everyone's grimy, everyone's covered with mud, and it's not the good, like, well, there's no good mud, but it's, for some reason, gray mud to me almost seems worse, because you're telling me it's basically mixed with rock. So, like, I'm basically being covered with some sort of low-grade cement at that point. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of gray mud, dust, red earth. Just everyone looks like they need to totally be hosed down.
My fiance left her notebook because she knew I was doing this today. To which, on the note of like the BO and the like apathetics, which is a whole culture that they just kind of go to, which of what they introduced, I could understand that the most, right? Just people who are living forever and bored of life and just kind of go catatonic. Her note was tossing women wakes them up, underline tossing women.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so let's dovetail that. This is not what I would call a woke movie by any stretch. Now, I'm going to say I hate when other people on like film podcasts like bring up how something from 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago does not jive with today's culture, because my first thing that pops into my mind is like, yeah, no shit. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that much time has gone by and culture evolves. So this is a very not woke movie. Zed trying to prove someone can't wake up decides, well, I'll start sort of a slow raping and see what happens. And then when he finally realizes that, like, oh, she's not going to wake up, he just drops her like she's a sack of potatoes.
No. He tosses her. Chucks her into a bale of hay.
Like, and I'm done. Like, It's so weird.
But I think the thing that, like, the next note that she made was she was into it, ? Like, because all of a sudden she woke up and was, like, no longer apathetic.
And again, I think it's supposed to be that Zed's primal animalistic life where he's not cut off from society like the rest of these Eternals are. Like, to me, the one kind of funny / scary thing about it was the fact that the Eternals are so much of the mind that they really have a hard time like even understanding the most basic of like human feelings and emotions, which is great, good acting. Except I would say it's not good acting. It's so much the script just didn't bother to like talk about them other than like, we just don't. Like whatever you say, like you guys hunt. No, not really. So they can't breed. They can't like seem to get any enjoyment out of anything that isn't like mental torture of one another.
So something that I didn't have the first time that I walked it, kind of on that note, I don't think I even noticed this, but they can like all speak different languages. And at one point, Friend just speaks nonsense that doesn't sync up with his mouth. I'm going to ask you what that was about.
I think what they're implying is that the people that became internals, or internals, although, hey, internals works too, eternals, they weren't all initially from there. Because if you recall, they were the children of the best and the brightest scientists of the world who got together to make all of this.
Yeah, of like all the rich and clever,
right?
So sealed themselves off. Which,
so and then all of those people that invented
that leading to a dystopian future with caveman people on the outside. Great concept.
Oh, totally. No. This could be the start of a bunch of great, fun,
great full movies.
Post-apocalypse. You could make a series out of this. Not that anyone should just randomly always go for like, if I do this, I get 2 more. Like that's not the goal. But it has all the hallmarks of great dystopia and or great like offshooting apocalyptic stories that you could have. This is the perfect kind of landscape you would find a Robert Howard character in. You'd find a Conan roaming these,
it's
caveman plains, and
they set up. It's like they just set up the universe rather than, I don't know. It's like the Silmarillion rather than the Lord of the Rings. They just set up this universe and didn't really know what to do with it. It was just a bunch of ideas that were all half baked and just set out there.
Yes. And for Tolkien fans, that's Dr. Chance's opinion, because I know you're a vocal group.
Okay. I'm not saying the Silmarillion was half baked.
And I don't want angry emails from people that I'm besmirching Tolkien's name. I'm also with you. I think the Silmarillion it's nice, but they're fragments of ideas that could have and should have been, finished, and unfortunately weren't. But a time. And
that being said, inexplicably, I find myself just periodically coming back and thinking about the movie, and I can't figure that out. Like, every so many years, I'll be like, I watched Zardoz. And then I'll just like sit there for a while and be like, I think I liked it. I think I like it. And then I'll try to watch the first 20 minutes and shut it off.
A little voice just does, why?
Yeah. Except this time I made it all the way through again and was exhausted by the end of it.
To me, it's not, I don't find it to be it's not a chore. It's not a problem to watch it. You just have to like, okay, I'm in the mood. Let's do this. But I mean, it obviously had massive problems. It became a cult film for a reason. It did not make its money back at the box office. So, I mean, that it's got a place in pop culture if Rick and Morty are like parodying a whole episode of it. So, I mean, like,
Yeah, that was surprising.
You'd seen that episode, right?
I think so, yeah.
With the Gazorpazorp. Raising Gazorpazorp. So I mean, it's like, okay, when put it in context with Zardoz, it's very funny. I mean, you it's decent, but I wanted to ask, so we have this one, and I was trying to lead into this before, but we got off on a tangent, and that's okay. Tangents are good. Sean Connery does a serviceable job as Zed. He needed this film. He had to be in this film. This originally was going to be offered to Burt Reynolds, which I think would have made an entirely different feel for it altogether. And I don't know how well that would have worked.
You're not going to get Burt Reynolds into a wedding dress.
No. They barely could get Connery into it. He was pissed. I can't imagine trying to talk, classic, not yet quite at the height of his powers, because he was hot, but he hadn't like broke. He wasn't doing like Smokey and the Bandit and Hooper and all that, like where he just did like, it didn't matter. He cranked it out with those Hal Needham movies and they made money.
Yeah.
But no, this is, he's just kind of coming into his own. I can't imagine Burt Reynolds in this role at
I
all.
can't help but think of I forgot the Canadian actor who like impersonates Burt Reynolds, but I can't help.
What, Norm Macdonald?
Yeah, I can't help but think of Norm Macdonald as Burt Reynolds as Zardoz.
Chewing his gum.
Zed, yeah, just chomping on gum the whole
Jumping
time.
on gum. Trying to aim at someone with a pistol, but complaining it's heavy.
Yeah.
No, I can see it. No, that'd be good. Well, if you had your ultimate stunt casting, and you could take a Wayback Machine, and you can go to 1974, you get to cast this. Would you keep Connery, or would you want to like trade him out with someone else, like see if you can get a different outcome?
No, I think this was perfect for the time. What I want to see is a remake of this movie with, like I'm thinking like Blade Runner, right? You know how they did 2049?
Yep.
Ryan Gosling, boom, Zed. And then
For the Consuelo role, for the Charlotte Rampling role.
Brie Larson, gotta go Brie.
All right, so you want Ryan Gosling as Zed?
Yep.
Brie Larson
or Sean Connery now
as Zed.
as
Sean
Zed.
Connery suits back up, and he's not old Zed. It's just Zed. Like we're supposed to take it.
No one acknowledges that he's aged a good 120 years.
An Eternal goes to touch him, and he just turns to dust. Falls into a cloud. Yeah, no. Oh man.
Well, I mean, they've de-aged everyone else. Do it for Sean Connery.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I kind of find it funny. I think Connery over the years has actually had a decent sense of humor about the film.
Oh, yeah.
Because at first he was embarrassed, and I can understand why. Because you made a big stink leaving a franchise that they would have gladly kept making you do movies, and I don't.
And he was replaced by some good and some way less good Bonds.
Yeah. So if you want to do Bond, so Connery shoots his 4 Bonds, and then he wants out. So they get oddly enough 3 people they were considering. They considered a ton. 3 people they're considering. They want to replace Connery. So one point they're floating. They did some screen tests. They floated Adam West, which I think would have been interesting. They floated Burt Reynolds, which neither one I can see, but at least I understand. I know there was talk. I don't believe it. There was talk. There's like a bunch of rumor that like James Brolin was considered, Josh Brolin's father, but I don't believe that hype. So basically, the Americans were out as they should have been. So what they ended up going with was George Lazenby. And George Lazenby is an Australian actor, but to an international audience, that's like
British enough.
British enough. So that we'll go with that. So it went to George Lazenby, and the movie on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Everyone talks about it. It was a bomb. It didn't. It did actually tremendously well. It just didn't do as well as the other Connery Bond flicks. And so they decided to be like gutless, and they scrapped him. So instead of like letting him, well, let's, we've uncorked this bottle of wine, let's let it breathe. They scrap him. And then they go and basically they back a Brinks truck up to the house of Mr. Sean Connery and say, like, if you like we just want one more film out of you. And then he does Diamonds Are Forever. And then they're kind of in a better place because they had a whole year and a half to look for their next Bond, knowing they would. And they get Roger Moore, who is hot off of being the Saint on TV. And, the rest is history. And for my money, I like Roger Moore, but Roger Moore is one of the most uncomfortable James Bonds to watch kiss various Bond girls. If you look at him, he does the most hideous pursing up of his lips. It's like 2 dried flowers just being crushed together slowly. Like, it's just terrifying. And as he got older, it didn't get better. So like when you're looking at him playing Bond, back in the mid 80s, where he's really showing his age and he can't do the running as fast, it's kind of hideous because he's tanned and he looks just like a piece of saddle leather that's reaching out some kind of horrible proboscis of lips to not really kiss a woman. Like, if you slow it down frame by frame, I think you're going to watch, like, there's a secret wince that's caught by the camera. So, that's just my take.
Looking at Sean Connery now, I take it back. Don't have him be Zed. Have him be the dude who invented, the old guy who's just laying in bed babbling, the guy who invented the tabernacle.
Oh, so you want him to pull like a Chuck Heston? Like the horrible, horrible Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. They got Chuck Heston to play an old, infirmed, dying chimpanzee. And, Charlton Heston died. I'll be good. I won't look it up, but I want to say he died in the early aughts. He died by like 2002, 2003, I want to say. So, yeah, like it's one of those.
If you do that, you could make it a sequel, right?
Yeah, you did a swan song, but what I'm saying is I don't want to kill Sean Connery by making him perform like last scene as old.
Oh, that'd be depressing.
That would be so sad.
Last role was.
They'll put him in one of those green robes we see at the end of the film, and he'll just look like he's floating in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poor bastard. What's gone wrong?
He's 89.
He's 89. Yeah, it's terrifying. But yeah, time marches on, Chance.
So back when you asked me if it was a satisfying ending,
yes,
it seems like the whole thing was they were being stewards of mankind's knowledge, and then at the very end, they just made Zed the steward of all the knowledge, and then just like kind of screwed off to be dead. And so like it seems like they didn't really solve any of it. They just now have a super enlightened Zed who is totally different, who now dies. So like there's one guy who has all this knowledge that is no longer necessary for any of the rest of society because the Brutals are going to continue doing that.
I would agree with the exception of this. The concept of Zed, yes, is imbued with knowledge, and he's given extra knowledge that the rest of the Eternals don't have. But if you recall...
About the tabernacle?
About the tabernacle, but, he knows the big picture. They know everything but that. Yeah. So the tabernacle knowledge will die with him, but that's the only piece that they did not have. So
but they're all dead.
No, but they're not all dead, because remember, Zed has to, as part of the agreement to receive the sum total, he sleeps with each of the fleeing women, who themselves are Eternals. They have sum total knowledge. Consuela has sum total knowledge. They have a son. So basically, I read the end of the film as a group of people who do know reading, writing, arithmetic, history, everything that makes mankind. They've all split and gone into different directions, but they're going to keep spreading that knowledge now. At least is how I would take it, because all of those people basically fled while the Brutals went and destroyed.
So all the ladies that rode away on horseback at the end of the movie.
Yes.
They all had some Sean Connery.
Yes, we are to believe
some Sean Connery time. Before they left.
Yes, it's actually in the montage, if you recall.
I don't.
There's a at the risk of not trying to sound crude, there is as part of the montage when he is in the crystal computer and he is talking and he's agreeing to make the swap of, okay, I will save everybody, I will help you, and in turn he goes to the Resistance and he agrees to, quote, give them children. And they keep intercutting all these various women like bending over Sean Connery while he's having the knowledge zapped into his mind. So it's part of that very psychedelic.
I was going to say, was that we'll do it outside of time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was all part of it.
Gotcha. One more question for you, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
If you
as
have
you know, I've become the speaker on all things Zardoz, which I totally am not.
If you could ride on like in a floating head or floating anything, or horseback, why would you ever choose horseback?
Agreed. Totally agree. Yes, but I mean, so what? The rest of the Brutals, you're saying? Why didn't they just learn to fly the head?
Yeah, or like, using people as slaves to like harvest the wheat and the gun-toting ones to control them. Why not just make floating automatic heads that just like shoot up the grain and take it back?
I mean, I think part of the logic was
I'm sorry.
it was easier. Well, no, what are you sorry for? I mean, it's a
No. The logic.
uh, touche, sir. Touche. All right. I think the broken cocaine-fueled trains of thought that left the station at different intervals and times, those were happening all at once. So I believe at the end of the film, the concept was it was easier when they were explaining when he gains the knowledge and understanding in the library, when it's finally shown to him and revealed that there is no Zardoz. Actually, there is just the illusion of Zardoz as based on the crazy works of the Eternals. So you have that as the setup. When they're showing him like this is how it's been and then it changed over time, to me it just made it sound like the Eternals are lazy and they got this system up and running and they're not going to worry about beaming the wheat in, and they're not going to worry about basically anything. And as you said, because they are the stewards of mankind, they have to like keep the Brutals alive per se, like long enough to have like, it's the zookeeper has to keep the tigers alive and healthy in the zoo because someday we're going to need more tigers. But what the tigers do in the pen, we're not, as long as they're not hurting each other too badly, we don't really care. They're not getting out and killing anybody. They're not, going in and eating the hippos over in their habitat. They're just staying where they're at. So I believe that the concept was like, let the Brutals do what they're going to do. We kind of keep them in check. They grow food for us. This is a good thing. We kind of need them doing something because when they don't, they kill each other.
Interesting.
So it became kind of like this game warden mentality of we're lazy and this works.
That's an awesome movie idea, Chris. I wish it was in this movie.
Again, but in agreement, what you said, there are like 5 movies going on within this one movie, and they could follow any one of those plot lines, provided they stayed with only one plot line, and you could have some really interesting stuff go on. But by that same token, I would argue because it is so chock full of craziness that doesn't go anywhere, that I think this movie is vastly interesting because of it.
Yes. It is, like I said, it stuck with me. I cannot explain why.
It's the very reason we're talking about it. Like it's interesting. It's usually, I will say this, a movie becomes bad when it becomes confusing. Like you can have a movie that's badly done, but that's not as like, okay, this is, it's a bad actor, or this shot looks like crap, or these effects are terrible, or the dialogue is awful. That still, to me, trumps the concept of having a movie that is confusing, where you don't get anything out of it and you can't tell what's going on. Like, to me, that's worse. Those are the 2 sins. It could be confusing or it could be boring. And boring's equally as bad because if you can't get someone interested in your characters or your film or what's going on the film, you failed. So
the first time you saw it,
yes.
You weren't confused?
I remember thinking, and I saw it later. I mean, I don't know, when did you see it? You were an undergrad, you'd said?
I think I was like a junior in undergrad or something.
Okay, so I saw this movie, I gotta say, I think I saw this when I was in high school. Like, it was one of those, like, I had seen it on, some deep cable, and I'd seen parts of it, so later when I was, like, sitting down to watch it for real, I was like, oh, I think I've seen this part before, but, like, I never had any context for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, oh, this is amazing. So, I mean, to me, I already kind of knew, like, it's that one with Connery and the weird head. And then after that, it just kind of like morphed into, oh, I got a little bit more and a little bit more. But, to me, when I did finally sit down and watch it front to back, I saw problems with the story, but I was able to follow the story, so to speak. Like, I was able to figure it out. I didn't need anyone's help in going, like, let's write down what's actually happening. I don't feel it's that kind of movie, but I feel it's not. Well, let me rephrase. It is not that kind of smart film. It's not like you really need to be dedicated and focused and a brilliant genius to understand it. No, the problem with the film is it tries to do 8 things at once and it succeeds in doing 2. And then you're left confused going, I'm being generous, I know.
Yeah.
But you're left going like, well, what about all that other stuff? Why did we even bother seeing it? And that's where I don't view it as confusing of it's poorly executed.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess I would agree with that. Like, I had a sense of each of the things they were trying to do, but the fact that they would pick it up and drop it was confusing. Let me say that. Like, it's like I would be like on board for something, be like, all right, this is the direction it's going. Oh, never mind, not at all. I'm just going to take this moment to moment. If you stayed moment to moment, by the end of it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
And you still might go, why?
Yeah.
Like but that's okay. Like, at least now there's gonna be like some liberal arts guy that's going around and they're like, but that's important. You're talking about it. It's like, yeah, but there's a difference between talking about the movie because you're fascinated by the concepts that it brings up. We can talk about the ethics or the philosophy of what would it be like to live forever, Chance. Like, you can, like, this movie, you could argue, is somewhat of a meditation on it. Great. We could talk the merits all day long. But if you and I are like, what was up with, like, the library stuff? Like, why? So wait, why would they wait? Like, if we were to do that, that just negates everything else. Like, just drives me insane when you have people that are like, oh, well, it's a controversy. Let's talk about it. It's not. It's just the script doctor at the time was like, well, or not even the script doctor, the director and then the showrunner that are coming up are saying like, hey, you only have X amount of film left to shoot in X amount of days and X amount of money. What are we going to do? And based on that, they're like, all right, we're not having that scene that explains everything we just talked about. Moving on. And now you're left with dangling threads of plot lines that never get resolved.
This movie definitely felt like the script was being at least revised as they were shooting.
Written in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at it through that frame, it is a miracle it made this much sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we get to discuss it today. And again, clearly, it has enough, panache and weird showmanship and crazy stuff going on to make it a cult film. Like,
oh, yeah.
This is going to be a movie people are going to be watching for the next 30, 40 years. I didn't say they're going to be loving it, but they're going to be watching it and going like, this movie's so weird. Why did it happen?
Like, I enjoyed it. And when I said it, like, made me tired, it made me tired not because, like, the acting's horrible or it's, like, disorienting or a slog so much as, like, you go into it and you're trying to hold on to all of the things. And then by the end of it, you drop everything except, like, something that you thought was tangential and, like, one thing that you kind of called from the beginning. And then you're like, oh, that's all I needed. What about all those others? And so that's where the exhaustion came in. Because it's like, what, conservatively a 6 to 8 hour movie?
Yeah, well, yeah, run times being what they are. Depending on the cut, it's about 105 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Or it's 102. But it might feel like an 8-hour movie.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I definitely don't regret having seen it. And I can guarantee you so many years in the future, I will return to it and again be like, why? But I'll keep coming back.
That's great. I'm happy to hear. So here, we'll do some closing thoughts then on it. So if you had to just throw it out there, and people within the sound of your voice that are hearing it now, if they said, hey, Chance, should I watch Zardoz? What would your answer be?
Yes. You should watch it. and take it moment to moment, and it is okay to pause it.
And discuss what am I seeing
Yes.
with who's next to you.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you recommended this film to other people?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Your fiance?
Well, she was like on board. She's like, "Oh, I've heard so much about it. That's not happening again." I got that vibe immediately.
Arms crossed.
No, yeah. I've watched it with other, like I've recommended it to others, and they've come back to me with a report on it, which is usually like, "What the hell did I just watch?"
Right.
But thank you. It was weird.
Thank you, but it was weird.
Well, I mean, like, these are people who like weird cult movies also.
Good. I'm happy you will keep the flame alive and keep recommending Zardoz to the future.
Yeah. We gotta keep Zardoz happy, you know. We have to keep taking crops in his name and continuing to quell the brutals. And
Of course.
the only way to do that is to spread the good word of the movie.
I like it. Chance, if you had to come back here and talk about another movie, what would you talk about?
I don't know. All I got on the brain right now is Zardoz. I might have to get back to you on that one. I don't know.
Okay. Well, then here, I think we're doing okay. We've gone a good clip. We can wrap it up. So I will say, Dr. Chance, thank you so much for talking about Zardoz with me. Do you have anything you'd like to plug or let anyone follow you on anything? Or do you want anyone to know who you are so they too can get their own Dr. Chance autograph?
They too. This is the first I know that I'm giving out autographs. No, I got, nope. I'm good.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time to join us to talk about Zardoz, and I hope to do this again with you soon.
Yep. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. I'm glad. Take it easy, sir.
You too.
So there you have it, the one and only Dr. Chance. I hope you've enjoyed it. I really love talking to Chance about movies. He has expressed an interest in doing another one of these sometime soon, so hopefully we will have him on here sooner than later. Always nice to have a bonus episode, and always nice to have a recorded conversation with someone who's knowledgeable. The one thing I must apologize for is, as we were doing this, both Chance and I were holding pens and were making notes, and as nervous tics and habits go, we were talking to each other and not paying attention to the fact that we were both clicking on and off our pens. So I apologize for that. That is something that it was unintentional. I did manage to actually clean out some of the audio to get rid of the pens, but still, you are left with some loud clicks on the track, so hopefully that will not happen the next time. So that's my bad. All that being said, Chance is going to go on and do great things, and we appreciate him spending his time coming by to chat movies with us, and we hope he'll do it again. So, that all being said, if you like us, please give us a favorable review on Apple Podcasts. Swing by, check out our website, lscep.com. We have articles, episode links, and comics for you all to peruse. We're also featured on Podchaser. That's a podcast database for listeners and creators alike. Find us there, give us a follow and a review if you could, please. More reviews make us more searchable, and then we can share with more people. As always, if you'd like to get in touch with us, make a comment, ask a question, send us wonderful things, please email us at lindenstreetcinemaexperience@gmail.com. Hey, if you'd like to be even more personal, you'd wish to send a contribution to the sidecar, please, by all means, send us an audio message by way of Anchor. That's a free and easy app for you to use. So, until next time, take care out there, wash your hands, wear a mask, please stay healthy, and remember, life's too short not to live in the past. Take it easy out there, everybody.